here I'm with, when is Antifa going to denounce Econ Breakfast, Nick Lee? Well, they won't, because he's adorable.
But he is detrimental to their cause, perpetuating misogyny. I would even say that he's not a trans advocate, but rather a self-loathing trans person who also kind of demonizes the trans culture in several ways.
Yeah, that's what we found out.
It's like they're not victims. They don't have to be a victim every chance you get. Like, isn't there strength in changing genders? Isn't that like a point where in a person's life where they realize that they have the strength to live out who they've always wanted to be? Why not uplift them instead of continuing their victimization and continuing...
Well, say for instance, like the misgendering of me. Why use the term Mary? If I've clearly enunciated, do not use the term Mary.
And he's acknowledged that there, that's been said, but still picks at,
Well, in each and every time that person, Nick Lee, deliberately misgenders me, there's a shockwave of trauma that reflects on my Catholic mother's non-acceptance, the gender dysphoria I experienced when my mother didn't accept my gender expression. Each and every in corrective rape is something that is applied towards androgynous or masculine butch dyke. Like the corrective rape aspect of, I've asked you to stop using your misogynistic feminization, hypersexualization of me. You keep inflicting it. And it renews this sense of trauma of why can't I have that equal level, like equal playing field of respect that I demand when I refuse to be gendered as Mary?
Treat others how you would like to be treated, I believe, is the golden rule, something you should really adhere to.
Right, so maybe, I mean, if I were to be as brutal as Nick Lee, Econ Breakfast, I would call him Nicola or Nicolina or whatever, Nicolina. And I'm just not that way. Like, if you want to be called Nick, I don't care what your, I want you to feel comfortable.
I mean, out of all the voices of Twitter, this is the voice that really has stood up for you many times. And if anything, I'm the one who's treating this as a joke. And Brain Garbage has come to me and actually corrected some of my...
Well, in my intervention is being framed as support. My intervention in Farley's may I say stupid? Like stupid Midwest clueless hetero dude bullying of the trans person. I'm like, no, this is highly serious. Because on one hand, I see this talented filmmaker and editor and artist. On the other hand, I see this deeply misguided individual. If I reach out and I'm like, intervention. Like I've done this for druggies, for alcoholics, for ideologically warped people. And that intervention isn't, I'm not an accessory to his crime and I'm not guilty and responsible. And if anything, I think it's a growing process for me. I think maybe we all have deeply embedded confusion about trans rights or what our responsibilities are.
I have a culturally new thing to be this widespread. And yeah, I mean, I am from the Bible Belt. It is very foreign to me. If I joke, it's really just to kind of comprehend and understand the culture around me. I don't have any hatred or vitriol towards anyone in the trans community or the LGBT community. I just find some absurdities within the culture that maybe they latch on to as a protection. And me being me, I just kind of have to call it out. Like, everyone is equal. Like, we don't need special privileges or maybe we do, but maybe it's just me trying to understand the culture.
Let's say when I've said, well, how many lashes does he get? Okay, so for each and every terrible email which has been circulated that you directed at Nick Lee is perceiving, I have this much trauma, you're this bully. You're never going to not be that bully to him. So his righteous quest to expose and basically defame and refuse to allow you to grow.
I'm not set in my ways, Econ. I'm only 32 years old. Like, my opinions, my thoughts about things change constantly.
It's evolution.
So you want to stick me into this one box where I'm constantly going to have to be, this comedian performing for people? No,
you've been typecast, and he's not allowing you to grow, which is ultimately not progressive to not allow you. Like I keep bringing up my friend DIY Zine Soy Noise Jang Lee, the anarchist DIY activist vegan trainer who goes into South Central, teaches beautiful vegan cooking, lifestyle changes, health, yoga, fitness, to people that are recovering from a life of crime, gun violence, people being murdered, slaughtered in South Central LA. He doesn't come in there and say, you're terrible, punch a fascist, you had a gun when you were 16, boom. He's looking into the justice system and seeing this need for revitalization and regeneration and wholesome living. And that's where he's my hero. This little manifestation of wannabe elitist Antifa is not my hero. My heroes are like the real anarchists who are willing to understand that people are enmeshed in their like anthropological mess of the culture they came from. They're products of their culture.
And I really think Antifa hasn't really gone out of their way to disavow Econ, but they're at the point where they're not liking his tweets anymore. They're not responding to the broken record happening against the same people, the same statements. It's almost like it's losing meaning every time you say it.
It's like using the F-bomb so many times that it no longer has shock value. And I mean, what I think my goal with Mr. Farley is, let's show them what a nice person you are, what a caring person you are, what a worthwhile person you are. And my fundamental worldview is that everyone is, that we all have a capacity to grow and change and develop. We all have skills. And then it's sort of like a seed that is undernourished that doesn't develop. I had an idea for a different film, like a third film. What was the topic of this one?
Will Antifa ever disavow econbrkfst?
Well, and I think no, because econbrkfst is maybe Antifa is very accepting of econbrkfst, but not me. But I don't understand why I don't get accepted.
I must say, just because you put on a mask once does not mean that everyone in your group must be accepted. Look at Micah Rhodes, okay? You guys are overly tolerant towards the people who don't matter. This person is a convicted sex offender who was basically setting up shop next to a daycare at Occupy ICE 2018. There were children at this campground, and thanks to, I hate to say it, sex offender Robert West and his footage of showing Micah Rhodes over there, which he brought to, I think, the probation officer of Micah Rhodes. He then went back to prison and is currently still serving that time there for being a sex offender and violating rules against children.
So having strong feelings against sexually abusing children will incur the wrath of Antifa when...
Well, it didn't, though. That's the thing, that they knew about his his probation and him being a sex offender. They knew about all this, but they did not condemn it. And they still don't. Like, in fact, Antifa still sends commissary to Micah Rhodes.
Oh, really? Oh, see, I don't believe in child sexual abuse. I've had too many friends that have been abused sexually. I mean, I'm all for, yes, he's whatever, he has his own trauma as to why he became a child sex abuser, but I'm not for that. So, when they launch into you basically in your 20s were flirting with an 18-year-old girl. So then because you're against pedophilia or into exposing pedophilia, they want to just say you're a pedophile, which is what they'll probably do to me, because
it's shifting the blame, because we know that Antifa is overly accepting of minor attracted people and criminal sex offenders.
Right, which is very common in certain liberal cultures, like Clinton-y, Epstein-y, whatever. Like the pro-pedo lobby has been trying to infiltrate the liberal establishment in England. That was called the Pedophile Information Exchange, PI, was deeply embedded with an organization called Liberty, which was like the equivalent of ACLU in England. And but also then intelligence agencies were willing to scoop it up for blackmail, which is kind of suspicious from like an ethics and intelligence angle, that why would MI5 want to have dossiers of which politician is effing a 13-year-old orphan in a male brothel? They called them rent boys. That was their code word. And that scandal, as it comes out, I think there's more of that. There's like, who killed, what's her name, that beautiful, like escort agencies using Intel compromat. And I think in some ways, maybe Antifa or liberals generally speaking need to pay attention to how much they're being set up to be defeated and deflated once you're exposed as a pedo apologist, that's itself compromising, or it should be compromising. Yeah, it's so sad. And I've noticed this with Econ Breakfast, that occasionally, like, if you're on a rant against pedo anything, he'll kind of want to pull it back. Like, let's not be so judgmental of the minor attracted people. And I think maybe Econ Breakfast needs to answer, are you pro-pedo or not? Are you for sexual exploitation of children? Are you yourself a pedo? Are you an exploiter of children? When you have minors who you are pumping up to do terroristic acts against someone like Brandon or someone else, are you a child abuser? Those are important questions.
Definitely exploiting children in that aspect.
Or say
by not condemning it.
Fathers and grandfathers. You're disrupting families. Like, I don't know. It's so sad.
And I know that Econ lives this lonely, frail lifestyle, like kind of as this little supervillain with. It kind of reminds me of Inspector Gadget, you know, the guy with the cat who's like, he would just pet the cat at the beginning of the song.
Yeah. And that's why he projects his supervillain ego onto you, is because this is the lens he sees the world. But maybe I think there's something in his archetype, like his comic book, like, villain, that it's answering a need. It becomes a form of entertainment. It's so fantasy-based. Long ago, I was like, he should just make a comic version, like Scary Farley.
That's fine. If you want to do creative writing at my expense, I understand I'm a funny character and all that. But, but when you cross the line and start to, like, say that you're calling the police over my joking tweets that are really affecting nobody, and that you're trying to get protective orders which have been denied, the police are telling you just to get off Twitter, like, can't you realize now that, you know, this is fun and games for me, but for you, it's becoming serious, and maybe you are kind of the problem. And
right. Well, and like, I testified against my beautiful ex, Benjamin Pickering, who almost broke my neck. Benjamin Pickering is currently at a sober house. He may be a threat to me. And when I say Econ Breakfast, Nick Lee, I prefer to keep my whereabouts somewhat incognito. Could you be respectful? I'm not in a safe house with government protection at this moment, but I'm asking you, human to human, intellectual to intellectual, to please respect that and do not endanger me. I was assaulted by a park district employee who hired a lawyer to stalk me. When you stalk me, you are enabling other stalkers, and I've asked you not to.
And Econ is very dangerous in the sense that he doesn't understand the trauma that he's inflicting. He's been locked out of his account for 12 hours for doxing people and still try to justify.
Well, and that's why letting the Astoria police who took down my abuser, the Seaside police who are aware of the parks employee who sexually attacked me and slammed me down, re-injuring my neck, letting the Portland police, who are possibly the jurisdiction of your whereabouts, Nick Lee, letting them all know what you are doing, and that things like the violent assault of Andy, no, I don't know how much FBI is profiling that. But as a person who's written a controversial blog about the FBI that federal employees tried to censor, your profiling me is assisting state, like the state of persecution of liberals, of activists, of writers.
You're putting a target on our backs too, like, hey, domestic terrorist abusers who are a large portion of my audience, look at these people, act accordingly. It's basically like my Adam Waffen act accordingly tweet, but it's manifested in an actual real threat. Right,
which, in the sense that Brandon Farley was joking about something which you knew not, the act accordingly was hyperbolic and mockery. But I'm not kidding, and I'm basically trying very hard to be very careful about that type of sarcasm because of its potential for sabotaging an account. Many times I try to make a joke, and then I realize this joke may be misperceived, and I think we all, like Twitter people, could pay attention to that, like how we comport ourselves. Yeah. And Econ is constantly sarcastic, like weird, or like, what is that, like
LOL, like,
yeah, it's not, yeah,
no
it's
comments, but really your comment is in your collage of tweets that you've scrambled together.
Right, which I mean, during the Patriot Act era, there was a lot of concern, like everything you do online will be super surveilled. And econ, whether econ works for the NSA or not, is a tool of the NSA because everything I'm doing on Twitter is being screenshot. My blogs are being screenshot. And it's like, okay, get a freaking camera on your minivan and drive around the neighborhood screening everything.
I mean, this is so falsified information. Like, I literally had to have a 20-minute phone conversation with a Portland police officer trying to dispel, protect my own satire, dispelling the fact that, no, I'm not associated with Jeremy Christian in any way. I don't support Jeremy Christian.
No.
In fact, if anything, my jokes about him is really meant to see, to bring attention to the scenario of what's going on.
Well, and people like me, I did not know that Micah played any. I didn't know about his violent intervention where he slammed Jeremy Christian down. I did not know that. So when you were hinting at that on Twitter, that was alarming to me, and I feel that the public deserved the true story. Mm-hmm. We didn't need a overhyped story.
And we've been shielded from this story. I mean, you can look the interview that Micah Fletcher did with Bruce Broussard. Of Oregon Voters Digest was actually taken down because he divulged too much in that interview. He basically said, yeah, he was the antagonizer.
Well, in what are other cases we don't know all the facts? We don't all know all the facts about the murder of Sean Keelaher. We don't know all the facts about the murder of the federal defender Nancy Bergeson. They've just finally arrested someone on that due to a prison confession. I think the public wants to know. We have a deep-seated interest in the truth, and anyone who's a journalist has an interest in the truth. But essentially what Antifa, this manifestation of fake Antifa, as I call them, they want to basically say, no, this is the narrative, this is what you're allowed to believe, you're not allowed to introduce any facts. And if you introduce facts, which a defense lawyer would introduce facts if they weren't bought and sold, then you're the bad guy, you're the bugaboo. And no, I'm anti-violent, non-violent, anti-murder. I think what I am, though, is frequently extremely compassionate with people like my ex who tried to kill me. I'm extremely compassionate in the sense that I want to understand them. I want them to work through their problems and issues. And I think there could have been a different outcome.
And maybe a little early intervention from these outliers could prevent the next Jeremy Christian attack.
And as a critic of the Portland police, I'm very critical of the fact that they had a bullet shot wound to his skull that could have caused extreme traumatic brain injury, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. He might need some of the most pioneering research into the brain manifestations that come about. And that when they cast him off and just throw him back into the ocean to go and do whatever, the Portland police are not taking accountability. And so me as the police advocate, police accountability advocate, I'm the bad guy because you, econbrkfst, are not sophisticated enough to understand my argumentation that my concern is with the accountability and the well-being of all. And if you're going to mangle someone and turn them into a Frankenstein with a bullet to the brain and then send them off to commit murders, it's a Manchurian candidate.
It's like, how dare they question all sides? How dare they look at it objectively from all sides of the spectrum? No, no, not everybody sees something from a one lens point of view. And I think that's the superpower.
And God bless the souls of those Michael Best and Taliesin, I don't know how you say his name, that poor fellow. I think God bless Micah for surviving. I'm thrilled he survived. Micah Schreiner. Micah Fletcher. Yeah, God bless him for surviving. And, if anything, I felt a little bit of, in unpacking this trauma, because this will afflict Portland and anyone associated with Portland for a long time, this Max incident. I found the quote of Mark Kruger, who just resigned from the Portland police, saying, I want to gas disabled people on the Max trains like a mobile killing unit, like Hitler, like World War II era eugenics, sterilization and extermination of people deemed unfit. I found that quote in Bob Seaver's testimony on PDX Indie Media, and I saw the narrative. This was being crafted as this white supremacist terror, and I'm like, well, you have a white supremacist advocating mass murder on your police force. He needs to go. I told Ted Wheeler he's going. So he's gone now. And that trauma, that's not even picked up by Antifa. I'm an anti-fascist researcher. oh no, but no, I'm a demon because I dare be polite and intrigued by all sides.
And Antifa is just too lazy to research what's going on in this city. They only pick the easy targets like Patriot Prayer, ones that are in the news more prominently. It's like they're basically like trying to create a spectacle off of spectacles.
Well, and the fraud that is being perpetrated, like Portlanders know econ is hyperbolic and mentally deranged and making a big fuss over nothing. But when he promulgates that to Chicago and Sanford, do they know that Mary Ang is actually a long-standing anti-racist, anti-fascist activist? Do they know that? Do they know how many times
defaming her?
That serious defamation is occurring? Maybe the people who really are the real Antifa that I affiliate with, they need to know that the fake Antifa will subvert and destroy Antifa from within, which I allege that's what Nick Lee does. I don't view him as really anti-fascist at all. He's pro-totalitarian. He is the dictator.
Yeah, has Antifa ever questioned the validity of Breakfast, who's only been here since February of 2019? Like, do they not see the detrimental influence that he has among their group? When will they disavow, if ever? Do I just need to put on a mask for protection now? Like, say, with the three symbols, the three arrows on my chest?
When at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
I'm getting hungry. Okay, I'm going to stop this because 20 is a lot.